Okay. All set?
Set.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of When Records Ruled, the podcast where we share our love of rock music and pop culture from the 70s and 80s, and take a few B-side tracks down memory lane along the way. So get out those liner notes and grab a man-sized wad of that Big League Chew bubblegum, because it's time to hit the play button. I'm your host, David Norris, and joining me on this flashback musical road trip are my good friends Brian Strom and Lance Schwartz. So what was your favorite Big League Chew flavor? Regular or grape? Because that was pretty much all they had, right? At the time?
Definitely regular.
Regular, probably
Really?
for me. I liked the grape, but
I was a pretty big grape guy for a while.
The first few bites of the grape are a little eye-opening sometimes.
Did you want to chew? I brought some samples this time. You talked about it last time.
that's nice.
I'm sure it's really fresh and really awful.
It's cha.
I had
But I bought a pack for us.
when I was 10 years old and I was playing Little League and my team was Hoffmeyer. And anyway, we're doing the pictures and the individual poses, with the bat and stuff.
Yep.
And I had some Big League Chew that I put in my cheek. So in the picture, I got a little wad in there.
Yep.
Should have had a little dribbled on it.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember doing that, like just packing some gum over there.
Oh, yeah.
You like the big league players?
I mean,
right.
wrapping it in real chew.
No.
You ever do that?
No, really. It's the fake stuff.
I remember the first time I actually tried, it was Copenhagen.
Oh, wow.
Real chew.
Wow.
My grandpa gave it to me.
Oh. Did he cure you of it?
Oh, God, it was terrible.
He did then.
But then later, college years, when they came out with those little individual skull packets.
Yep.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
Skull Bandit?
Skull Bandits.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do they still make that stuff?
They do.
Yeah.
I think it's different brands and stuff now too, but they probably still make Skull too.
Earl Campbell. I remember him doing the commercials for that.
A little pinch between your cheek and gum.
Yeah.
Give you real tobacco
tastes
flavor.
good.
Yeah. I do remember having like the big leaf chew when I was young. I think one of my uncles out when we were fishing, it was kind of like my dad and his three brothers. One time they offered me some and I grabbed it, and my head was spinning so fast.
It's so
I was like,
bad.
no way.
Yeah.
No way.
You got to spit that and get it out of your system.
It was not. I think I accidentally probably swallowed some too, and that was like
that's
what did you
when
in.
you're a goner. Yep. For sure.
Yep. All right, gents, on today's episode, we will be discussing the self-titled debut album by the supergroup Bad Company. We'll hear what was happening around the time of the album's release, wrap it up with a personal rating of the album, and then we'll end the show with our Remember When segment. But before we get into talking about the album, Brian has some information and fun facts on what was happening around the time this album was released.
Which is the week of May 24th, 1974.
That was a few years ago.
I was 4 years old.
I was 3.
Lance, you were what, 18?
Hey, I'm a little bit older than you, but not that much older.
That might have been the earliest we've heard that.
Not that much older. I believe that's 74. I was 9.
All right.
Oh.
Okay, so some of the top bands at the time were Paul McCartney and Wings, Chicago, Three Dog Night, Gordon Lightfoot. Anyone?
I like Gordon Lightfoot.
I know you do. Didn't you bring that up one time where they won all the awards for the 11 years in their run?
Canadian awards? Yeah.
That might have been a bit of a stretch of
That was the Bryan Adams episode.
That
right?
was pretty funny, though.
Yeah, that was good.
And the Carpenters.
Oh, wow.
You know, I just realized I like 70s music a lot because I like everything you just mentioned.
Yeah.
All good stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's because at that time I had nothing but an AM FM radio.
Yeah.
Didn't have a record player, and I listened to a lot of music
Yeah.
on the radio. So if they were all radio staples, that's what I grew up with.
That's right. Okay, so the top 3 songs on Billboard's Top 40. Number 3, The Entertainer.
Scott Joplin.
Martin Hamlick.
Marvin Hamlish?
Hamlish. Is it Martin or Marvin?
I think it's Marvin.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. But here's the funny thing about The Entertainer.
There's nothing funny about the Entertainer.
Well, this is funny. I took piano lessons for a year and a half.
It's Marvin.
Yeah. Okay.
And the only song I know how to play yet is the opening parts of the Entertainer.
I remember being in school, and any kid in the school who was taking piano lessons was playing this song.
Yeah.
It's like everybody played this song.
My buddy Chan knew a little bit of that too. I asked him to play it, even though he could barely plunk it out, but it was still cool. Like, hey, now someone who could play that, a little bit of that.
Yep. All right. Number 2 was Dancing Machine.
You got me on that.
Jackson 5.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Number 1, The Streak.
Ray.
Yep.
Price?
Nope. Starts with an S.
Ray Stevens.
Yeah.
That was on a Looney Tunes like compilation K-Tel album we had.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
He was very unique.
He was. Yes, he was.
They call him the Streak.
Yep.
Best thing on TV.
You ever seen a streaker?
Not in real life.
We had one somebody streaked through the gym of our high school.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm sure.
At convocation time, or it might have been even chapel time.
Oh my gosh. I'm guessing
And
suspension was in order for that, huh?
Through one door and
Out the other?
Out the other.
Yeah.
He couldn't. I don't know if they ever figured out who it was. Even, to be honest.
It was that fast, huh?
I'd hate to see the lineup.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, for sure.
Can you identify the gentleman?
Yes. All right, moving on. The top TV shows at the time: Happy Days,
Classic. Loved it.
Land of the Lost.
Oh, yeah. Yes. That intro always scared me. I think
Oh,
we
it
talked
was,
about
yeah.
that. But
That's the Slee Stacks.
Yes.
The Streets of San Francisco. Did anybody watch that one?
I remember seeing a few reruns of that, maybe.
Yeah, that was with Michael Douglas.
Carl
As a
Malden,
young
I
cop.
think.
Yeah.
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 I always kind of liked it because it was in San Francisco.
Yeah.
It was near me, so I was
I
like,
suppose
oh,
you
yeah.
recognize some landmarks
like,
and stuff. Yeah.
That's kind of cool. Gunsmoke
Yep.
Good stuff.
and The Carol Burnett Show.
Yep. Good stuff, too.
Top movies of the time period: Blazing Saddles.
I just watched that not too long ago.
Classic.
Yeah. Very non-PC,
Totally.
but it's still funny.
It is.
It's still funny.
Yeah, that was one I watched in one of my classes in high school. You okay there, Lance?
Just taking a sip of pop for all of us to enjoy.
That was for him. I was wondering what happened. That was just Lance streaking across the studio.
In my clothes. No, you can't streak in your clothes, can you?
No.
All right, so Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein.
I don't know that I ever watched that one. I've seen clips.
That movie is awesome. Gene Wilder.
Gene Wilder.
Gene
yeah.
Wilder. Yeah.
It's so funny.
And what's the female lead?
Terry Garr
yeah.
Gar.
and Igor.
Herbie Rides Again.
Yeah.
Oh, that was like more than one Herbie movie already out.
Herbie the
Yeah.
Love Bug
Yeah.
series. Yeah.
We were very enamored with that whole series.
Same.
And the
Yeah.
Apple Dumpling Gang, all
Oh,
that
yeah.
whole Disney collection there.
The Great Gatsby.
Nope.
Yeah. You probably had to read it for
Yeah.
a class in college, didn't you?
Yep.
Yeah.
And That's Entertainment.
I remember it, but
I don't remember
Yes,
that
these
one.
are all. Well, I know a lot of these, but not all of these. Some
Yeah.
of them, I don't know.
they all ring a bell.
Yeah.
I just looked up The Entertainer. Scott Joplin was the writer. of the song.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And Marvin Hamlish, his version.
That's why you recognize the name, though, right?
Yeah.
You thought of the name. That makes sense.
Yep. That's all I got.
Thanks, Bri.
You're
All right,
welcome.
guys. It's time to rock steady with some Bad Company. Let's do it.
That's all you got, Dave?
That's all I got.
Come on now. Need some more cowbell.
Need more cowbell. All right, to get us started, Lance has some background details to share about the album.
Yes, sir. Bad Company, as Brian mentioned, is the debut studio album from Bad Company. Kind of like the Boston debut album. Just named Boston.
When they can't get very creative,
or the Van Halen, or the we could go on and on
probably. Yeah. Released in, what did you say?
74.
I've got November 73 in this one, but somewhere between.
I got May 24th, 1974.
That was probably when they started recording. No, seriously.
November before.
Thing is, you can't trust Wikipedia, and that's where I got this.
Oh, come
anyway.
on.
I cross-referenced mine at 6 different sources, Lance.
Good for you, Dave. I'm sure.
I did not. I found one and went, okay.
Our listeners really appreciate it, too.
Dave's our fact checker over here.
Yes.
So this album, interestingly, was one of the first albums released on Led Zeppelin's Swan Song label. First of 3. Swan Song was created after Led Zeppelin were through with their first contract with Atlantic Records. Did they do 4 or 5? I can't remember with Atlantic, but then they created their own label. And in fact, Peter Grant, who managed Led Zeppelin, also managed Bad Company until 1982. So that's kind of an interesting tidbit. Bad Company, you might say, were a supergroup.
I did.
Maybe even, did you say that before?
I did. I introduced them as a supergroup, but I didn't really know them as a supergroup because I didn't know too much about them, but go ahead.
Well, they might be one of the first supergroups. I was trying to think about who else would be.
There were some in the 60s, I think, because I was trying to look up, like, were they one of the first ones? There were some in the late 60s, though, too. And I didn't write down the names, but they reference ones you probably heard.
Then they don't exist if you don't have the names, Mr. 6-time fact checker.
Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
I don't know.
Yeah.
They mentioned that. So there's one of them.
But Young was with Crosby,
Buffalo,
Stills,
Springfield. And think of all the Eric Clapton stuff that he did, Cream and stuff. And that would have been maybe a little earlier than Bad Company.
What was another one before?
Derek and the Dominoes. I mean, he had...
Cream would be a supergroup for sure.
Yeah. So there were some before this, but not many.
Yeah.
There weren't like a big laundry list of supergroups before this.
The one that came to mind for me, but I don't think that really was a supergroup, but when you hear the names, you'll say, well, yeah, kind of. So the Yardbirds had Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, and Eric Clapton, but none of them really, I mean, this was like their first foray into music. So, I mean, as far as recorded music, they were that early.
Right.
But
they weren't put together because they were super guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They turned out to be super.
They sure did.
So they were like a super group in retroactively?
They were in training.
I guess. Yeah, something like that.
So they were so good that they all went on to do their own good things.
Jimmy Page and Paul Rogers made their own little super group later on with the Firm.
It seems to be an ongoing thing with Paul Rogers for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely for Paul Rogers. So mentioning Paul Rogers, he was the vocalist for the band. Drummer was Simon Kirk. Guitarist was Mick Ralphs, and bassist Rod Burrell. So Rod Burrell was in King Crimson, good prog band from the 70s. Mick Ralphs, Mott the Hoople. Remember the song All the Young Dudes?
Young Dudes. That's the only one I know.
Yeah,
that's a really good song.
And I know that was written by David Bowie, but I always thought it was David Bowie.
Same, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. There's a few, is it Badfinger that sounds a lot like the Beatles?
Yeah, when they do a Beatles song, it's like, oh yeah, that was written by the Beatles.
Yeah,
it sounds just like the Beatles.
Yeah.
Yep. Paul Rogers and Simon Kirk were both in Free, which we may get into a little bit later, but man, I mean, Free really is Bad Company in my mind. I mean, if you listen to the Free album, or several of the Free albums, you go, it sounds just like Bad Company. So,
All Right Now.
Yeah. So why they all got together, I don't know. More money? They did all right.
They were probably tired of the groups that they were in.
There's always disagreements, Lance. Everybody wants to be in charge.
Kind of like when we argue about music and we say,
Shut
I'm
up.
going to start a podcast with some other guys.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, right. I'm going to go over here and be on a podcast with these guys because they listen to me.
Oh, funny. So among the songs recorded for this album, and this goes back to this whole, these guys were in other bands before, but Ready for Love, big track on this album, was on Mott the Hoople's album called All the Young Dudes. Mm-hmm. And they also recorded a song called Easy on My Soul that was on the free album, Heartbreaker, which, as I was saying before, sounds a lot like Bad Company. So there's a couple, that album, or that song, Easy on My Soul, didn't make it to the album, but was on a flip side of a 45 or a single release for Ready for Love. No. Moving On.
Yeah.
For Moving On. So another interesting tidbit, one of Free's songs from their album Heartbreaker that I just mentioned was Wishing Well. Remember the band Blackfoot? Train? We probably mentioned them before. Yeah. They did Wishing Well on that album. I just learned that.
Okay.
Because I wasn't really big into Free. It was kind of before my time.
Yeah.
But I thought, that's a Blackfoot song. And then I was listening to the Free album just to kind of prepare for this episode. Where have I heard that before? Sure enough. The album itself made it, let's see, 5 times platinum by RIAA. What does that stand for, Dave?
Recording Industry Association of America, my man.
Wow.
Awesome.
Live it, learn it, remember it.
46.
We'll reference it again.
We will. 46th best-selling album of the 70s.
Wow.
A lot of good music came out in the 70s. And here's the best one of them all. Our friends at Kerrang!
I did see this.
I don't think I did.
It's the heavy metal magazine?
Number 40 among the 100 greatest heavy metal albums of all time.
Totally.
Kerrang! Come on, you guys.
We need to keep referencing Kerrang for every album, I think, and try to find that.
It's so
Because all we do is heavy metal albums.
The album was also included in the book 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die.
Okay.
Kind of wish I hadn't heard it because now I'm ready to die. Cheapers.
I'm sure you got a lot more to check off your list, Lance.
1001. That wouldn't. I actually could get a copy of that and see.
Yeah,
that'd be a fun episode. That would be a fun episode to do.
Interesting.
So the singles Can't Get Enough, Moving On, both peaked at number 5 and 19 on the Billboard Hot 100, respectively. Rock Steady, Bad Company, and Ready for Love. Also, if you turn on classic rock stations,
radio staples.
You're going to hear them all the time.
Totally.
That's the background, gents.
Awesome. Couple questions for you guys. There's only 8 songs on this album. It's like a hair under 35 minutes. So what's the ideal sweet spot in an album length for you? Because the last episode, we did Tesla. That was just under an hour.
Yeah.
And this one's almost exactly half that.
Yeah.
So what's the sweet spot?
I think 40 minutes is the sweet spot.
Ding, ding, ding. I agree. I always said the same thing.
20 minutes aside.
Yep.
And then, like we talked about, it fits on the one side of your cassette, your 90-minute cassette.
Yep.
You could fit the whole album on there.
Not going to argue.
I think that's the sweet spot.
For sure.
I would concur. Not going to argue with that.
Yeah. And I think if you went, say, 30 minutes, you might feel like you're getting ripped off. I pay for this whole album and I'm only getting 30 minutes.
So that's why this one's like 34.
Needs to have that Super Saver sticker on it.
That's right. Yep.
The Super Saver.
Yep.
In 2012, Spin Magazine interview, in a Spin Magazine interview with John Mellencamp, he was quoted saying, "The best rock singer ever would have to be Paul Rodgers." How would you guys rank Paul Rodgers as a vocalist?
Very solid.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got that real bluesy, but he can hit some high notes too. Yeah, I like him.
Kind of gritty. Yeah.
I think he's a little underrated. I mean, he's not spoken about a lot. I hear
people reference him as one of their favorites. And an influence.
That's good.
Yeah. And as far as I know, he's been able to still,
Speaking of which, I think I referenced this later when we were talking about some tracks, but I saw a video from 2 years ago on Hard Rock Live. He was doing, Bad Company, the title track. And he sounded fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, it was awesome.
Yeah.
I was really surprised because not all these older guys can really still vocalize and it sounds like the original track.
Right.
And he did a really good job with that, I think.
I also read that he was a favorite of Freddie Mercury, who was, maybe
and
top 2, 3 greatest vocalists of all time. And then he toured with Queen. It was Queen plus Paul Rogers for 4 or 5 years. So to be able to step in and do some of those Queen songs, I'm sure was a bit of a challenge. Well, maybe not a challenge. I haven't really listened to a lot of the Queen Paul Rogers stuff.
I haven't either.
No, I haven't either. That'd be interesting to listen to.
Because I wouldn't have said that Freddie Mercury sounded like he was influenced by him. I mean, like,
no.
He could have been influenced by him, but vocally, I don't see a connection, which is cool.
I read something about, he said he liked his aggressive style. I don't know what exactly that means, but
I wouldn't think aggressive.
Aggressive would be a term or a word I would use to describe his vocal style.
What is Freddie talking about?
I don't know, man.
I don't know, but he's a pretty good singer, so I'll agree with him.
Sure. All right, one last little factoid, we'll call it, instead of a tidbit.
Ooh, okay.
And we'll get into talking tracks. Rogers said this about the band name. I thought this was pretty interesting. I had to fight to get the management and the record company to accept the name Bad Company. They thought it was a terrible name. Our manager called a meeting and the band met beforehand. I told them that I had been through this before with Free and with Island Records when they wanted to call us the Heavy Metal Kids. Like, that's a horrible name.
Yeah, that is.
It is awful.
So he said, we agreed to go in and tell them that we were going to be called Bad Company, and that was the end of the story. And it stuck, I guess. So
much so that when he left the band and Ralph's and Kirk were still around, the record company said, you're keeping the name.
Keep the name.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
changing singers, but we're keeping the name.
Yep.
When you have a debut album like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, let's talk some tracks. All right, there's only 8, so it's not going to take too long to get through the list here. So I'll get through the list. We'll circle around to our first one and start talking. We start off with Can't Get Enough, Rock Steady, Ready for Love, and Don't Let Me Down on side 1. Flipping over to side 2, we have Bad Company, The Way I Choose, Moving On, and Seagull. So here we go. Getting it started with Can't Get Enough. What do you guys think about this as an album opener here?
It's good.
Yeah. I mean,
solid.
It is solid.
They don't, for this band, it's a little bit poppy, but those power chords, it's a good, solid. Who said that?
It's about as much rocking as they get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I like hearing the little countdown stuff at the beginning.
Yeah.
That's kind of a fun way to intro it.
I heard that was done out of necessity because they recorded this in a mansion. And they had a portable studio. And this is the same place where like Genesis had recorded Led Zeppelin, I think Physical Graffiti and stuff.
Wasn't it Zeppelin's portable recording studio they were using?
I don't know. I don't think it was Zeppelin's studio. That was somebody else. I can't remember who that was. It was Laney something.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, they were in this house and they were in different rooms, set up mics in different rooms. So the drummer was somewhere else, and so they couldn't always see each other. So this was a count in to let them know, hey guys, I'm starting, because they couldn't see him.
They didn't have video monitors back then?
They didn't have video monitors.
No click track. No.
Right.
Wow.
It's the highest charting song on the album.
First single.
Peaked at number 5. And I think I said this before, but it's a pop tune. I mean, if you strip it down, it could be a pop tune with different instruments. It's just very, I don't want to say predictable, but it's steady throughout, and it's
straightforward rock.
That's exactly what I said.
Sing-along sort of rock song. Yeah.
It's a good intro to set the tone for the album, like we've mentioned on previous albums, right? You mentioned, Lance, I think that borrows from the riff that Mick Ralphs used from the 72 Mott the Hoople song, One of the Boys. Did you guys?
No, I didn't mention that.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm mentioning it now again. I thought maybe you mentioned something about that song being similar. They borrowed a riff from that. But I tried listening to that and hearing what they borrowed, and I could not.
Couldn't find it, huh?
I couldn't find it, no.
Okay.
But apparently that's a thing.
I kind of like the closing, like the last minute or so, it's like this vocal guitar trade-off sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It's fun to listen to. They sound like a bluesy bar band.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, as I was listening to this, I mean, it sounds very intimate in the recording. They did a fantastic
it
job
sounds
with
like
that.
they just set up in the living room and we're just playing.
But I could hear this sounding fantastic and being a really good small club show.
Totally.
Oh, man, yeah.
That just really hit me as I was listening to this.
Yep.
Paul and remaining members, let's do a club tour. Come on to Minneapolis and play First Ave.
There you go.
That would be so cool.
That would be awesome.
That's a good song. And you mentioned earlier that they had one of the Little Misfortune was one of the songs on the B side that didn't make it onto the album.
Oh, okay. That's what he was mentioning.
And that was on this song.
Yeah, I mentioned one. I can't remember the name of it. That's probably it.
There's another one on a different one, but which I thought was interesting because you only have 8 songs on the album. So it's 35 minutes. Why these other 2 songs, which are decent songs? I don't know why. I kind of went into it thinking like, well, maybe they sound really different from the album. They didn't quite fit in.
Yeah.
They would have fit in. So I don't know why.
If you listen to that Free album, which came out maybe 2 years before this, can't remember the name of it right now, but I mean, it sounds just like Bad Company.
Really?
Yeah.
And any of these songs, well, a few of them actually were on that album, would fit in.
I have the it's called the original anthology of Bad Company that came out in 99, I think. Yeah.
2 CD set there.
2 CD set, and it had the 2 B-sides songs on this collection, which at the time I didn't realize they were B-sides.
Oh.
And so I was familiar with the songs. And then just listening to the deluxe version of the Bad Company debut album, they had those included with them with some other stuff. But so yeah, I'm curious why they didn't throw them on the album.
Great question. Somebody email Paul Rogers.
Yeah, let us know. Curious minds want to know.
And the bass playing on this song.
Oh,
so fun.
The bass throughout is really good on this album.
Really good.
And, coming from his prog roots and King Crimson, I can see why.
And I'm not familiar at all with King Crimson. I think I tried to listen to him one time and I just couldn't. I mean, I listened to him and I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my word, he's a great bass player.
And speaking of that, I noted on this album too, you can distinctively hear all the instruments so well.
Yep.
I mean, the mix on this is just fantastic.
And there's no special effects on anything.
No.
Everything is just like I said, it's just like they plopped down in the living room, plugged in the amp, and just start playing.
I think this is the reason why, and I got qualified. I like some of the layered 80s stuff, but it gets so overproduced that you can't pick stuff out, and it's hard to listen to. This is easy to listen to rock because, like you're saying, it's just the instruments and the vocals, and they don't put any extra garbage on it. Yeah. Kind of the way Tom Petty played, Yeah. And one other I'll mention after we go to the next song here, which might be a good segue.
You know what we need?
We need to rock steady.
We need more cowbell.
Yes, we do.
So this song and the previous one, Can't Get Enough, were Van Halen covered those before they got signed.
That'd be
when
fun
they were
to
playing
see.
at bars.
Oh, that would be cool.
So you can look those up on YouTube and you'll find those on there. So they thought they were cool.
Yeah. I already had solid, nothing fancy, straightforward rocker.
Mid-tempo groove.
Yeah.
Listen to this closely. I mentioned before, might sound like another band. This is ZZ Top, guys.
The little intro there.
Totally ZZ Top.
Yeah.
Very bluesy, very bluesy.
Yeah.
The bass kicks in.
That guitar hook is just...
It's, very, very early ZZ Top sounding.
Yeah.
It's great. It sounds awesome.
Paul Rogers' voice it sounds a little bit hashed on it. So it's cool.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it was tired, and
when
he'd
he
been
gets down the
straining
end and he's doing that rock steady.
Yeah.
And you could hear it. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
It's really hard to, say anything interesting, like, they switch tempos or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not that kind of music,
No,
folks.
not at all.
And that's not necessarily bad. It's just, you get what.
No,
I don't know.
Yeah. I had a thought as I'm listening to this one, probably on the second or third time listening to the album, preparing for this. And I thought to myself, how would these songs in this album have been perceived at the time? Because it's so difficult for us to put ourselves back in that space of music and say, was this like super innovative and cool?
Here's what I came up with, because I always had that same thought.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking the singer-songwriters of the time, this was kind of a little maybe heavier, grittier version
not the Carpenters?
of that. It's not the Carpenters. It's not the Eagles. But it's a little, I don't know, heavier. But I think just the vocal delivery style is, I don't know, kind of just a little amped up from the singer-songwriter.
Yeah, I would totally agree. It was probably the heaviest stuff that was on the radio at the time.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound heavy, after
Now,
heavy metal came out.
right,
or
yeah.
some of the 80s rock, but
Deep Purple and stuff. I mean, those were a little
in that-
heavier, but
yeah.
in that
Same vein there. Yeah.
Yep.
but almost like a little rockin' version of the.
it's just more bluesy. I mean, Deep Purple was similar, but Deep Purple got a little proggy at times, with the keyboards.
And the
stuff.
keyboards and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of helped kind of date them a little bit more, I think, than this one too.
Yeah.
In my mind.
It
With some of that
holds
sound.
up really well. Yeah.
No, I mean, this one does.
Yeah.
I
I think Deep Purple does too, but
Yeah.
that's
you hear a lot of the songs from this album on the radio, maybe not so much as Deep Purple from this
Right.
time, as many songs.
it's because they can't play 20-minute songs on the radio. Space Truck.
Space Truck. I do like that song.
Yeah. But what else? Yeah. What else would have been similar to this at the time? Well, I think ZZ Top, like I said before, it sounds a bit like.
But they're a little boogier. But I can understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Are there others that you can think of? Thin Lizzy, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's
And hey, you listeners, leave some comments on what you think.
I think that as their albums progress and they get towards their later ones, their sound did change. This one is a very stripped down, basic album compared to their stuff that came out later.
Yep.
Got a little more complex,
Yeah.
changing with the times.
Yep. Especially when Paul Rogers rejoined them in the.
99.
Yeah, I'd have to look what those songs were.
Oh, they did the 3 new songs?
Is that on that compilation? Yeah, what were they, Brian?
Hey Hey was the one that was the one that got the most play. Hammer of Love and Ain't It Good, I think it was.
I really like Hammer of Love. That's a good tune. But it's different than this stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Well, somebody in the production world was probably telling them, just like, who was it? They were talking about Styx.
Yeah.
You got to change. Prog's going away.
And I don't have a problem with that.
To an extent, I don't.
If they kept doing, I always remember Eddie Van Halen said, if we keep doing the same thing, why would you buy a new album?
Yeah. I mean, they
just go
evolved.
buy the
because you're
previous
a
album.
freaking awesome guitarist, and I don't.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but
But the musicians themselves want to progress too,
Yeah,
and they
they
don't want to
wanna-
keep doing the same thing.
exactly.
I think we
Yeah,
had,
as long as they don't compromise, what they want to do.
yeah. Ready to move on?
Moving on.
Ready for love.
Walking down this rocky road.
Walking down that rocky road.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a cover from Mott the Hoople.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
Did you listen to the Mott the Hoople version?
I
Yeah.
did. It's a little heavier.
Not a whole lot different, though.
Not a
No,
whole
it's
lot
not.
different. The
So why is this better than the Mott the Hoople? Why is it? Because
I think they slowed it down. It's a little bit slower.
a little bit. Okay.
Some of the lyrics are a little different. That's not that big of a deal, but I don't know. That's a good question.
My theory is because all the young dudes was so different than the rest of this stuff. and it was Bowie, and you can tell it was Bowie
Right.
who wrote it, that everybody's like, why doesn't your other stuff sound like all the young dudes? You just got this bluesy rock. I listened to more of that Mott the Hoople album. I kind of liked it, but for some reason, Bad Company. Maybe it's because they were a super group and
So
people were curious.
This was the guitarist, right? From Mott the
Yes.
Hoople.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nick Ralphs. Yep.
So I'm sure in his mind he's like, we did this. I think this would be a good song for us.
Yeah.
And he just kind of brought it over and said, let's
tweak it a
Bad
little
Company
bit.
it.
Yes. Their band is now a verb.
And you're probably right. I'm guessing because Mott the Hoople is only really known for all the young dudes at the time. They're like, nobody really paid attention to these other tunes, but we think they're good. And doggone it, they were.
Yep.
I like a lot of things about this song, even though we've all heard it probably 100,000 times. But this one, I started noting how clearly you can hear not only all the instruments, but everything Rogers is saying lyrically. He's just got a very articulate, clear voice.
Yeah. I said his vocal delivery was a good storytelling vocal.
Oh,
For
yes,
sure.
Yes.
He's good
Yeah.
at that on a lot of his tunes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
He puts just enough kind of emotion in everything that it's
Yeah.
not overdone.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was just that slow groove, and you had just little touches of organ, and then you have a quote piano solo in there.
Yeah.
That is
Unexpected.
kind of scattered.
It's kind of jazzy almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of thinking maybe something's going to come in, and it kicks back into the woo, and then it's like, it's really cool.
It is.
It is really kind of moody music, mellow. You can just, I'm not comparing it to Pink Floyd, but that sort of thing where you just kind of sit back and you just close your eyes and listen
Just
through this.
go on the
and
journey with
Go
them.
on the journey, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's one of the better early 70s tunes in my mind that I can think of.
All right, moving on. Don't let me down.
Yep.
Good song. Oh, never mind. I thought we were on side
Bad
two for
song.
a second.
Bad.
No.
Oh.
I was gonna say, does this chorus sound familiar?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Beatles, right?
Beatles song of the same name. Yeah, it's similar tempo, a little melody, but I mean they're different enough. I think people were comparing it to that, but
I think just because of the title.
yeah,
But it's like,
mostly.
I don't think
Yeah, I
anything else is going to.
Didn't make that connection, but
Yeah,
I love the chorus. Since you mentioned it,
yeah,
it's so gospel-y.
yeah.
And there's a gospel choir, but it's an easy to listen to song, but they add that kind of crunchy guitar, that gritty, crunchy feel to it that I really like too. And they've got a sax solo in there.
What did you think of the sax solo?
I liked it.
I didn't. I thought it didn't quite fit.
I thought it was okay.
Yeah,
but it was a little like, oh, sax. I wouldn't have imagined that with this song.
The guitar solo came right after it too, I think.
Right, it did. Yeah.
So it was kind of a trade-off sort
It's
of
a
thing.
a bluesy sounding song, and
I think they're blending some genres in a real terrific way on this song. It's one of my favorites on the album, believe it or not. I didn't really know it that well before listening to this critically,
Yeah,
because we're critics.
same. We are. That's news to me, buddy.
I listened critically anyway.
Yeah, well,
So
That's
it,
good.
to me, should have gotten more play than it did, but
I could see why it wouldn't get a lot of play. I think it's just kind of too slow.
yeah, it's
and
pretty mellow.
I like it, but I
Yeah.
could see why it was not a radio.
Yeah,
The female background singers, did anybody look into them at all?
I felt I had their names.
yeah, I'd like to know.
Sue Glover and Sunny Leslie, who are actually sisters.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They also went by different names. So they did backup singing for a lot of different groups, like Elton John, T-Rex, Tom Jones, David Bowie, Donna Summers. And they also did this little song singing background for Joe Cocker. Little Help from My Friends.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
So
Love that song.
One of these sisters did. And after that song came out in like 69 or so. Mm-hmm. So after that came out, they were kind of sought after.
Okay.
So yeah, they
need
show
some background singers. Have I got the background
we've
singers
got
for you?
some. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, and there's that gospel kind of sound you're talking about, Lance.
I do like it.
Yes, indeed.
Ready to flip?
Oh yeah.
Starting off with Bad Company on side 2. Oh, yeah. You go, Paul.
That bass.
It's the little...
It's like the bass is humming.
Yeah. Sing to me.
Company.
Yes. Is this just a perfect song to start side 2 on this?
And this is the definitive song for this band, in
It
my
is.
opinion. And I love how he introduces, Paul Rodgers kind of hums that little.
Yeah.
It's like, not every vocalist would do that, but he just ad-libs and sounds so good.
Yeah.
It's real haunting, sort of.
Yes. Yeah.
totally.
Just that cool story build up to the chorus where that wall of sound comes in.
Yep.
That driving guitar, though, it's not like a big, huge strum. It's just like a slow little, and I just, I get goosebumps when I hear that because the drive on that is just so cool.
Yeah.
So there was that metal band that remade this.
Brian and I
You
were
got
talking
that?
earlier today about that. Five Finger Death Punch.
Yeah, I
They
saw him
covered
do
that.
it.
You saw? Yeah, I was wondering if you saw them in person. Who was that with, by the way?
That was with Seether and Five Finger Death Punch and Lacuna Coil.
Lacuna Coil. Okay, it was Lacuna Coil.
And one other band that I'm escaping me right now.
Korn.
No.
So you saw him do that. Was it pretty cool?
It was really cool.
I listened to their version. I thought it was a good cover.
Yep.
It's worth checking out.
Because, their other stuff is, it's pretty scary stuff. And this one, he toned it way back for the song. But I thought it sounded really good.
Just remember the other band. Hell Yeah.
Oh.
Guy from Pantera, right?
Oh, is it? I don't know.
I don't know.
I think he was in Pantera. Yeah.
I saw a recording of Paul Rodgers performing this at Woodstock 94 with Slash.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I saw that video. I'm like, is that really? That's Slash.
It's another super group.
I guess. And this is the one where I saw him performing this a couple of years ago online in Hard Rock Live. And yeah.
How did Slash do?
He sounded like Slash.
Yeah.
It fits right in. He's kind of blues bass at the core.
Right.
So it was pretty good.
I like how the tempo just picks up ever so slightly at the end. It's not like it goes into this full out, slow to fast rocker, but it picks up just a little bit, enough to make you start nodding your head a little.
And the way the drums, when they kick into the chorus, coming out of the verse, and just that, it just like hits you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, going back to the recording quality of this, that helps.
The vocals.
Yes, all of it though. You can pick up, but
on this song.
Yeah.
Did you hear what they did?
No. Oh, I did. Go ahead and tell the story.
So they actually recorded his vocals outside. So they ran chords outside into a field, and he's standing out there alone in this field, middle of the night, under the moonlight, and he recorded the song.
For what
that's
reason?
the vocal atmosphere.
Mood, huh?
Mood. Yep.
It's cool.
But that's the song itself. That's just...
speaking of isolated track, to hear his vocal isolated would be pretty cool.
That would be. I wonder if there's stuff out there.
Going to look for that now.
Yeah.
Moving on to The Way I Choose. That's pretty mellow, man.
It is.
I said slow burner is what I wrote.
Slow burner.
But I dig it.
I compared this one to a 50s style slow song.
The guitars are a little different than the rest of the album. Mm-hmm. More, I would say, more earlier than the heavy stuff. I can't really pin a genre on this one. Like, it's just a little different than the rest of the album.
It is different. The saxophone shows up again, except this one, I thought it fit better.
Yeah.
I had mixed feelings on this one.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to it enough because, like, I knew most of the songs on this album. I was surprised, how many that you just hear on the radio from this song or from this album.
Right.
Yeah.
But this one I hadn't heard as much, so I'm kind of still, and I enjoy it, but it's not my favorite on the album.
Right. And if I would have picked, those 2 B-side songs that didn't make the album,
Yeah.
it could have easily replaced this one.
You think they were better than these?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go listen to those now.
Yeah.
I suppose it depends on what they were trying to go for,
Right.
the
And
audience
it could have been a mood kind of flow, no doubt. But
they could have done a full-on rocker album, but might not have sold as well. I don't know. I mean, judging by the list of, the Carpenters and some of those that you're mentioning,
Yeah.
they might have strategically said we need some slower tunes on here.
I had a quote from Simon Kirk. He said, Paul must have been a cowboy or a bounty hunter in a previous life.
Cowboy, just kind of mosey. This is a very mosey song, isn't it?
It's, yeah.
It is.
The whole album, it's kind of that Western feel, that cowboy kind of
Bad company.
bar band sound.
Like Western bar,
I mean,
saloon?
a saloon sound.
Saloon sound. Huh?
Yeah.
So they're a gang.
They're a
called
gang.
Bad Company.
They're a bad
It's
gang.
the Bad Company gang.
Very bad gang.
All right, we're moving on to
Moving on.
Moving on.
bass again.
Yeah.
Paul?
Doing it again, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you hear this playing on the radio
Yeah.
on classic rock stations all the time. Another
Yep.
solid classic rock song. Speaks well to songwriting and relatability, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
So the song talks about life on the road with a band, which was kind of a
Typical.
consistent theme back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guitars are awesome. They got a little different tone, but that's cool. I think maybe there were some pedal effects. And I don't.
Yeah, this is about the wildest,
Yeah.
effects that they have with that wah pedal.
It really is.
I mean, that's
It's the
about
only
it.
one I noticed that.
Yeah,
had
that's
it.
true.
But then it gets into a wow, wow, wow
Yeah.
at the end. But
It was kind of Frampton style, I thought.
A little bit.
The only one I noticed.
pre-Frampton, right?
Yeah.
It was, well, yes and no, I guess.
I guess probably before he got big with Comes Alive.
Exactly. Yeah.
So no one really knew about him.
Yep. But, the wind down and ending are just kind of real
They're just-
classically cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a really great song about life on the road.
This was the second single. Do you remember how this charted? I don't
Number
remember.
19, I think.
So it's pretty high still.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's big for back then.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
Top 40 was a whole different thing in the 70s than it is in 2020. If we would have top 40
Yeah,
anymore.
that's a good question.
I saw this one was originally recorded by Mick Ralph's band Hackensack. Did you guys listen to that version?
Yes, I did.
What did you think of the chorus?
I did not listen
I have
to
a
that.
comparison with the chorus. On that
I don't
version.
remember the chorus, but
It sounded like a Mentos commercial.
oh,
It was
interesting.
it was very poppy.
Yeah,
Very poppy. So they really changed quite a bit on this, I think.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I just remember it being really fuzzy guitars, and
Yeah.
it was different. So they did put a whole new twist on this one.
Yes, they did.
But yeah, again, that bass, man, he's just walking all over the place on this song. It's so good. And
Yep.
the drumming was, to me, stood out more on this song than a lot of the other ones. And maybe just because he had more freedom to
Yeah.
get a little wilder on this one.
And it sounded a little more drum forward. I mean,
Yeah.
you could hear it a little clearer. Maybe they
Right.
just crank that up in the mix.
Yep. Good upbeat song.
The mix as it is. I mean, there's just, as
Yeah.
we were saying before, there's not much to the mix. It's just good.
No.
Right.
Straight forward rock. All right, let's wrap it up with Seagull here. Paul getting us going again with a little humming, right?
Yeah.
So Ultimate Classic Rock ranked this as the number 8 best Bad Company song. You guys agree with that one?
It's a great song. I don't know. I have not sat down and rated them, so I couldn't tell you.
I mean, it's pretty high. I mean, there's only 8 songs on this album.
Yeah.
So this is in the number 8 spot, coincidentally.
They had 6 albums, I think. I mean, the original Bad Company, I think, had 6 albums.
Okay.
So
his vocals are terrific. Talking about the way his vocals kind of soar, it gives me the metaphorical sense of flight, the seagull and all that. Sounds a little corny, but it really does. But who shoots down a seagull, for crying out loud? It's like, what kind of weird lyric is that?
He wrote it sitting on the beach. So I don't know.
There's no reason to shoot a seagull, but anyway.
Well, they can get pretty annoying.
Sure, yeah.
So I could see shooting them sometimes. I think it's
that's
illegal.
It is illegal, yeah.
Well, you think of seagulls. What do you think? Oh, seagulls in the beach? Seagulls at the dump. I mean, that's what I mean.
Or the Walmart parking lot.
Right.
Yep. Which is kind of like the dump.
So you got the ghetto seagulls and the cool beach seagulls.
You know what I found weird about it is I thought it would lead to a guitar solo, and there's never a guitar solo.
No.
Like, what is this?
I even noticed that the guitar, there's like a little imperfections when on some of the chords you can hear like stuff out of tune strumming.
Oh, really?
Yeah, listen to it again. I mean, there's stuff like clearly out of tune, and I don't know if it's just where he's positioning fingers on the fretboard or something, but it's clearly like not perfectly in tune, which I think it's kind of interesting including that and just saying this is just the raw.
This is it, yeah.
This is the way it is, yeah. All the imperfections and everything. Oh, that was a really interesting way to end the album on this very bare bones song that's essentially just acoustic guitar vocals and minimal bass and percussion and a little bit of it.
I don't even think there's any bass or
there
percussion.
is
there?
But it's very minimal. Yeah, it kind of pops in a little later.
So interesting good, interesting bad.
I mean, it's not my favorite song, but it's kind of captivating. And like you said, it kind of takes you on a little soaring journey.
Yeah,
it does.
It does, yeah.
It's just telling kind of a story. So, but it's just kind of this surreal or ethereal way to kind of end the album on like this wisp of
it doesn't leave you
away.
on a high.
No.
But it also doesn't leave you going like, that was
like
lame.
some throwaway song that
so
yeah.
It where else would it have fit on the album?
Man, I don't know.
I think it had to be at the end.
Yeah.
Not because it's a bad song.
I agree. Yeah.
But because
just the nature of it.
It's a good closer, yeah. Because where do you go from that?
You're not going to jump back into like Bad Company or something like that.
Right. So good placement.
Yeah.
Yep. That's it. 8 songs. Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Quick.
Did anybody have this album like back in the day?
I don't think so.
No,
Yeah.
I never.
I had Straight Shooter, and I still have Straight Shooter, and Run with the Pack I had.
I remember picking this one up probably in the early to mid 80s, used record of it. And so I had it at that point, but probably listening to the 4 songs I knew. I wasn't listening to much of the other stuff until I got this compilation. I remember my cousin Eric had the cassette that came out kind of in the mid 80s he had the cassette of their greatest hits, which was called 10 from 6.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I remember him having that and listening to that a lot. And all these songs are going to be on there.
Yeah.
So 4 of the 10 are from this album.
I'm going to have to look up 10 from 6. I remember that. I think I had it too, but I don't remember what all was on it.
Well,
but 4 of those.
Rock and Roll Fantasy, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Some of those.
All right, I have a little summary quote here for you guys. From a Rolling Stone review back in 1974, they said this: "This is an uncompromising album reflecting the wills as much as the talents of the participants, and it's all the more impressive in light of the fact that it was recorded immediately after the group's formation. With upgraded material, perhaps including non-originals, more stylistic daring of the sort displayed on Don't Let Me Down, and the maturation of the already a rewarding relationship between Rodgers and Ralphs, Bad Company could become a tremendous band."
Well,
he nailed it.
Right?
Good prognosticator.
Yeah, they could become a tremendous band, yeah. And knowing they were already a supergroup, I mean,
that was like
probably not a reach, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was like a positive review from Rolling Stone.
Yeah, right?
Wow.
How weird.
One of the reasons I grabbed it. Any final thoughts before we get our reviews here?
Well, what do you think about talking about some of the other super groups that Rogers was part of, just as a...
I think we mentioned before that Dave and I saw him when he opened for Steve Miller.
Yes.
And it was Paul Rogers with...
Before, in an earlier episode, some time ago.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was.
I don't remember, but
yeah.
With Neil Sean playing guitar, doing a Muddy Waters tribute
Well, that would
album.
be really cool.
Yeah. So
Did
that's...
the band have a name?
It was just Paul Rogers.
Paul Rogers?
Yeah.
Did you guys like The Firm?
I liked The Firm.
Yeah, especially their first album.
Yep.
And their second album, there was more of a, at least the first tune I remember listening to, a real Jimmy Page sort of influence.
Yeah.
The first one was more of a Bad Company feel, but that definitely was a super group because Chris Slade was the drummer for that band, who, the bald guy that
Yep.
drums with AC/DC for
Oh,
yeah,
that
yeah.
time. Yeah.
And he was the guy I saw drumming for Paul Stanley.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yep.
Same guy.
Yep. Yeah, he's kind of
So he's bouncing around with all the super groups.
What do you think about Bad Company going on without Paul Rogers and what they were? I mean, Paul Rogers goes out and starts a different band called The Firm, and we've got this new incarnation of Bad Company that didn't sound anything like the Bad Company that we know.
Money. I'm sure a lot of it's just like, well, the band wants to continue. We will still want to make music.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And
they have to continue
So
some
they
way,
just-
shape, or form.
There
Rather than
was-
recreate and form a different band, they're like, well, we already have the structure. Let's just get a new singer.
There was
makes sense.
Yeah.
a few years in between this breakup and then the new version of Bad Company.
Yeah,
it was
about
probably like 4 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
Okay.
The Firm was in there, and
Yep.
So maybe they were hoping Paul was going to come back, or
Well, and
I
he
don't
eventually
know.
found his way back.
He
Yeah.
did, but
Yeah.
that was some years later.
I didn't mind the other version of Bad Company. Did not sound at all like this.
No, not at all.
Very different.
And-
But I thought they had some cool stuff.
I mean, they were fine. They had this song though, like in the early '90s. Do you remember called "If You Needed Somebody"? It was this ballad. It was. I really didn't care for it at all. So the lead singer his name was Brian Howe.
Yeah.
You know who he sang with before? You and I have seen him. I don't know if he's with him when we saw him though. Probably not.
I can't remember.
Ted Nugent.
Oh, yeah.
Uncle Ted.
I doubt he was.
Yeah, I don't think he was either
But, yeah.
because who was the guitarist that sang too? He was back with Ted for a while.
Mhm. Yeah,
Derek St. Holmes.
something like that.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, all of them had a fair amount of success with their other incarnations. So good on them, I guess. But I like the original Bad Company.
Yeah.
You're probably not alone, my friend.
Yeah.
All right, it's time to give our personal rating of this album from 0 to 10. Where do you guys stand on this one? Let's start with Lance this time.
Yeah, this is I might bump it up a half. So I did my traditional gave ratings to each of the songs
Yep.
and I came up with a 7, but I think it's better than that. I'm gonna say 7.5. There's not enough songs on it for me to go much higher, but quality wise, I mean, the playing and all that, these guys are 9s and 10s, but it's not consistent enough for me throughout to go much higher than 7.5.
Bri?
I like the mood of this album. I just listening to it as a whole is better than listening to individual songs, I think. It's a mellow, slow groove, like I said, without all those effects. And sometimes you want to hear some of that just kind of basic, straight ahead rock and roll. And I think you get it with this one. I'm going to go an 8. I like it. I do agree it's a little short. I do wish those other 2 songs would have been included on this one. And as I was listening to this album, I was listening to those 2 along with it. So I
You're lumping them in almost.
I'm almost lumping them in, and I think they could have, and I don't understand why they didn't put them on the album, but I like it.
I knew 5 of the 8 songs from just listening to classic rock radio on this, and I was so surprised.
That's just
when I heard
crazy.
that. Yeah. And that should say something about the staying power of this album, right?
Right.
Staying power is 100%.
Yeah.
It's
for sure.
It's monster. And I never really considered like what you just said. You should listen to this entire album to get the whole package on this, because you hear the songs on the radio, but when you do listen to the entire album, it kind of gives you a little bit different perspective and appreciation for them as a cohesive unit, I think. So I agree with that. It's a solid 7 for me. And that's the review. All right, guys, it's time for Remember When. This is a segment where I ask Brian and Lance their thoughts about something we grew up with but may no longer be around today. These are still around today, just in different forms than maybe you remember or updated. Well, you'll get it. Today's item, lunchboxes.
Yeah.
What did you have growing up, going to school? And more importantly, do you still have your original lunchbox or one of them? Like my wife's Peanuts lunchbox.
remember
I had that one.
Tin lunchbox we found in her mom's house when we were helping move her some years ago.
That's probably worth $50 to $100.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'll post that online, but I wanted to bring that in as a good sample. Thermos.
Is a thermos
quality.
in there?
No, but it was Thermos, brand.
Sure.
Yeah.
But remember the little thermoses that came in them too?
Yes.
The little lid with the little handle.
Did you have, I often just I get milk, but some kids I remember having like soup in there, and I was like, what? You had soup,
were a
Lance?
soup guy?
Chicken noodle, all the time.
Yes. Occasionally, we would get soup.
I think we got, my mom still does fantastic chili. And every once in a while, she'd put chili in there.
See, that would have been,
Wow.
She
living
made
large.
good lunches. Thanks, Mom.
Wow. That would have been awesome. Do you remember any of the characters or stuff that you had on your lunchbox?
Yeah, I remember my first one.
Yeah.
It was the Partridge Family.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Had the colored bus on it. The different
Nice. Yep.
patchwork sort of. Probably had a Star Wars in there in the late 70s.
Yep.
But beyond that, I don't remember.
I also had another Peanuts one that was a different shape. It wasn't the square. It looked more like, your dad's one he's taking.
Like the rounded top with like a
rounded
barn?
top,
The
barn
barn
look
shape?
to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was another Peanuts one that I had in that shape.
Like a bit bigger than
A little bit
tin
bigger,
ones.
yeah.
Wow.
But I almost want to say it was plastic. It was a plastic one.
They did make plastic later. Yeah.
I have a photo I dug up from, I'll have to remember, 79? I'll correct the date later when you'll see the post, but it's a Mork and Mindy one. Oh. Yellow plastic. Woo. And you can kind of make out what it was. And I'm like, oh man, I better so I texted my brother and I asked him, do you remember what kind of lunchboxes we had?
Yeah.
And he remembered the Mork and Mindy. He goes, because we're nerds. He said, I'm a nerd. And I'm like, we're both nerds. We both had Mork and Mindy. But I think I remember maybe having an Empire Strikes Back one too.
Oh,
yeah. I think I had something Star Wars. I just pulled up some pictures right now looking at some of these. And now I'm vividly remembering what some of the other kids had.
Oh, yeah. You remember
other
that.
kids. Yeah. But I was trying to think of what I had.
Yeah.
And it was hard to remember.
I know.
Other than the Mork and Mindy one, I can't
Those
guarantee
two,
I even
that's all I
had.
can-
I'm pretty sure I had an Empire Strikes Back, but I have no photo.
Yeah.
And even looking at the pictures, I can't remember like staring at that at lunch. Because you'd kind of like relate and see all the details and stuff. And I couldn't quite remember that either.
I think one I wanted to have that I didn't get was the Kiss lunchbox. I mean, who wouldn't want a Kiss lunchbox, right?
Those guys scared me back then. I did not want a Kiss lunchbox. I wanted Hong Kong Phooey.
Yeah, there you go.
Number one super guy.
Yeah. I remember seeing a lot of Scooby-Doo.
Oh, yeah.
Ton of TV shows, Little House on
Happy
the Prairie.
Days, I remember.
Oh, Happy Days.
Yep.
Yes.
Welcome Back, Cotter. Yep. This is fun to remember that.
Whatever was popular on TV at the time.
I wished I had kept.
And then I think when you got to 5th grade, you're like, All right, Mom, just put it in a brown paper bag, please.
Yeah.
That's right.
Even though you still wanted the lunchbox, but somebody wasn't.
I just remembered a quick story about the lunch bag thing. So I think I was maybe a freshman in high school, and I was running late, and I couldn't pack my own lunch, and my mom packed it, and I got to school and was sitting at the lunch table, and I brought out the sandwich, and she had cut it diagonally. I was like, I would have never done that because that's a sure tell, like, your mom probably packed your lunch for you, right?
Yeah.
So I was just like quick gobbling that thing down before anybody noticed. Sorry. Oh, just one of those stupid, embarrassing things that no one really probably paid attention to anyway. But it was like very conscious of that. Like, I don't want people thinking my mom made my lunch. But thanks, Mom, for making my lunch.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
By the time we got to high school, here's $3. Go buy your lunch.
Oh, exactly.
Yep.
All right, guys, that will do it for today. In our next episode, we're having our first guest on the podcast, the creator of our When Records Ruled theme song, as Brian likes to call it.
Fantastic.
Right?
We might get to hear
Eddie
the whole
Van
thing
Halen
next.
is coming?
What? I didn't hear what you said, Lance.
We might get to hear the whole thing.
Yeah, man. That's the whole song. I told you, what we played is the whole song.
Is he going to play it like live in the studio?
Oh, that'd be so cool.
I don't think so, because I think there's
all right.
a few instruments playing at a time. He's not a one-man band like that.
Well, I got some lyrics for it, so.
So our guest will be Benji Iniger. He's a composer, sound designer, photographer, and just a super creative, cool dude. And we couldn't be more excited to have him on the podcast.
He's kind of like Hong Kong Phooey.
He's the #1 super guy.
Oh, man. If you missed our previous episode, we covered the album The Great Radio Controversy by Tesla and had a Remember When segment on BMX bikes. It was a pretty rad conversation.
Oh,
so if you
totally
haven't
rad.
listened to it yet, be sure and go back and check it out.
Well, to all our committed and casual listeners, because we know we have a few casual listeners.
Yeah.
Most of you, I'm sure.
Pick and choose.
committed. We want to thank you for your continued patience and understanding as we sometimes take a little too much time to tell you whether or not we like a song or album. So accept our apologies, but we do appreciate you as listeners. So whether or not you enjoy our long-winded reviews, we'd still appreciate you passing along a recommendation to your friends to give us a listen
Yes.
on whatever platform you choose, because we're on them. We're on them all, right?
Yes.
We are everywhere.
Also, let us know if there's an album or topic you'd like to hear us talk about in a future episode.
We'd appreciate if you would leave us a review of this show or any of our other shows that you liked and listened to on your favorite podcast listening app.
5.
5 stars, Dave
5.
said. And we said this before. Tell us if you've given us 5 stars. We will mention your name
Yes.
on air,
Awesome.
Live. Recorded.
going out all over the world, actually.
Yeah.
So you can also follow us and leave us comments on Instagram and Facebook at When Records Ruled, where you can see all the pictures and all sorts of cool stuff that Dave's going to put up. We're not going to have a great album cover for this one, but it'll be cool.
It'll be cool enough.
It'll be cool.
Yeah. Still share it.
Yeah. Share it. Check it out. Check out the Spotify playlist that Dave will put together on this and other albums that we've discussed.
Yep. Check the liner notes for that.
Check it out. And remember, we're not professional music critics. We're just 3 guys who like talking music.
Yep. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.